So hi everybody. My name's Meagher. I'm the chairperson of the Irish Women Lawyers Association, and I'm delighted to welcome Oonagh O Hagan from the Mars Pharmacy Group to speak to us this evening. It was an idea from one of our committee members, Aoife. So thanks, Aoife, for pointing us in Unagh's direction. I was saying before you joined that it was an easy sell. You know, sometimes you just pick the right person, pick the right name, and you know, the numbers flood in the registration. So I'm really glad we're doing this. My sister-in-law is a pharmacist and my wife is nearly a pharmacist, so I have some sort of perspective on it, but really interested to hear yours. And I think there are a lot of similarities between, my impression is that there are similarities between pharmacy and law in the terms of the numbers of women coming through, but then perhaps the number of maybe pharmacy business owners, or in our case, the number of law firm partners, it's not matched at the higher levels or the kind of leadership levels. So interested to get a perspective on that. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, and if everyone can just keep their mics off while Unagh's presenting, and then we'll have questions at the end. Thanks.
Great. Well, thanks a million, Meagher. No pressure, no pressure. Lovely to meet everybody in the virtual world here, and I'm delighted that Meagher has asked me to come and speak about leadership, I suppose, in these very challenging times. And I guess as we navigate through very uncharted waters, I would say that leadership, I suppose, always has been really important, but it has been actually critical, I suppose, over the last number of months, certainly in our business. So I thought I would just take you through, first and foremost, a little bit about who I am and I suppose the business really, before I get into maybe sharing some insights on, I suppose, what I have learned as a leader through even before COVID, and then certainly in the last number of months as well. And hopefully we'll have some time for some questions then at the end if anybody wants to ask. So first and foremost, just see if I can move the screen now. Yeah, so this is me back whenever I didn't have so many grey hairs, but I am a qualified pharmacist, and I come from the north of Ireland. I actually came to Dublin to study pharmacy in Trinity. But I think the important thing to say here is that I have absolutely no business skills. I have never done a business degree of any shape or form, and I have never been taught any real leadership skills, neither, believe it or not. So everything that I have learned really has been self-taught, and I would probably say I've learned more from my mistakes than I have from my successes, really, and just always taken the learning on, you know, what went right, what went wrong, and how could I do better the next time, really. So I studied in Trinity for that 4 years, and then after that you had to, when I studied pharmacy, you did a 4-year degree course, and then you chose then for the last year, you either did it in a community pharmacy, a hospital pharmacy, or in industry in a pharmaceutical company. And I chose community, probably just because I like to speak to people, really, to be honest. But the pharmacy that I chose was Mars Pharmacy, actually on Bagot Street. And I asked Pierce Marr, he was the owner at the time, would he be my tutor? And I was delighted when he said that he would be. It was his family business. It was his mother's pharmacy before him. So it's been a pharmacy since 1926, and they lived above it, actually. So it was really steeped in family values and a lot of heritage. And I would say that from the minute I crossed the threshold to work in here, I fell in love, I suppose. It's a bit romantic or whatever, it's a bit sentimental, but it is the truth. I absolutely fell in love with the I suppose the heritage of the store, but also just the customers, the diversity of the customers, and the community in which it was in. So, and listen, I had the most wonderful year with Pierce, and he taught me. He's probably my first mentor. Well, I would probably say my mum was my first mentor, really, but certainly he was my first business mentor. He taught me so much about customers, how to look after them, and really he was really involved in the community. He did a lot of philanthropic work with the St. Vincent de Paul Association and lots of others as well. And he really showed me, you know, the importance of that and being entrenched really in the community. So listen, I had a brilliant year with him. I bawled crying on the day I was leaving. I begged him to keep me on, even just to stack shelves. He said he couldn't because he had some other intern coming after me, which I was appalled by. But what I did say that day, I plucked up the courage to ask him really a question that I'd always wanted to ask him, and that was, if he was ever selling the pharmacy, would he let me know? And he said that he would, probably just stop me crying and get me out the door. But 4 years later, believe it or not, I got that call, and he rang me to say that he was selling the pharmacy. He had an offer on the table from a multinational, but he had been thinking about our conversation, and he would rather keep it in Irish hands if he could. So, of course, I was ecstatic on the phone, thought all my dreams came true, and then he told me, obviously, it was the amount of money that they had offered him, which was £2 million at the time. And I was in my early 20s. I hadn't even paid off my student loan, and everything I was earning I was spending, so I didn't have anything like that kind of money at all. But anyway, I was absolutely determined to make this mine. And anyway, to make a very long story short, I went and met so many people, and eventually came across two guys in AIB and did a sales pitch to them. And in fairness to them, they backed me and they gave me the money, and my dream came true. So I began, I suppose, my life and business in this pharmacy back in 2001, but very quickly, I suppose, into it, my ambition really grew, and I knew that I wanted to actually bring the brand to other communities as well. We were doing a lot of work and a lot of good work within the community, and I wanted to really, I suppose, make a difference in other communities too. So I suppose the next 6-7 years, I set off on a trail, I suppose, of expansion. I had acquired 3 other pharmacies, and I'd opened then at that stage another couple of greenfield sites, so brand new pharmacies under the Google building down in Barrow Street and in a primary care centre as well. And through all of this, I suppose the brand started to get a bit of traction. We started to get a bit of a name. We did a lot of work on the branding as well, and things were going very well. You know, sales were going up, profits were going up, everything seemed to be going fine and dandy. And then the financial crisis hit. And I suppose I felt back then, all I can describe it as like somebody just pulled the rug from underneath my feet. I just had no idea what to do. I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. I felt absolutely like everything that I had built up was going to come crumbling down. And I also had this huge sense of responsibility to the people who were working with me in Mars. A lot of their partners and their husbands, wives were losing their jobs. They might have been working in the banking sector or other sectors, and they had been pretty much let go at the very beginning. And I felt a huge sense of responsibility to them. And that's the kind of thing that actually kept me up at night, really, to be honest. So obviously in the marketplace, consumer sentiment fell through the floor. We were going into this whole period of austerity. But the biggest impact to us in our business was and there's lots of lawyers on this call, so you'll be well attuned to the FEMP legislation that the government enacted. So this was basically financial emergency measures in the Public Interest Act, that piece of legislation. And what that allowed the government to do was really to cut many sectors, the public sectors, including pharmacy, our fees. And what it played out for us really was a series of cuts through the HSE, cuts on our margin, cuts on our fees, all sorts of cuts that really, when you packaged it all together for my particular pharmacy, led to a 38% cut pretty much overnight. It was signed in, the cuts were implemented, we had 21 days notice. So it was a very dark day whenever I worked out the numbers, and I just knew actually that it was unsustainable going forward. Like there was just no way we could survive that level of cuts. And really all my eggs at that stage were definitely in the HSE basket. We very much were a prescription business, and they were our one primary customer really. So I learned a big lesson that day, not to have too many eggs in the one basket really. But throughout all of this, a huge, I suppose, thing that kept coming back to me every night. I would go to bed and I wouldn't be able to sleep and I'd wake up in a sweat and whatnot. But the thing that came back to me over and over again was this quote by Charles Darwin. I'm a bit of a science geek anyway, but he this quote of, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but actually the one most responsive to change. And that's what I knew that I had to do, really change the business model. It just wasn't fit for purpose anymore. It wasn't going to work. And we needed to radically change and change pretty fast. So, I spoke a lot to my mum over that period of time, over those couple of weeks, really. I felt like I was like a rabbit caught in headlights, really, and I couldn't make any decision. I was just in such shock that I didn't even know what to do or how to react. Which I remember her saying to me one night, you cannot do this alone. You need help. You need to engage your team. You need to speak to them. You tell them what's going on, and let the magic happen. I'm telling you, that's what you need to do. And so that's what I did. I gathered up the team and I brought them to the Sandymount Hotel, the entire team, and I just told them, listen, I was completely honest, and I explained to them exactly the situation that we were in, the commitments we had made that I had made to the bank, and what the cuts actually meant to us. And I have to say that was probably the one night where everything changed for me. I left that hotel that night with a completely different person. I felt like I had been broken completely, but the pieces were starting to be put together again. It was a very emotional night for me. I actually still get very upset even thinking about it, because it was them who really swooped in to really solve the problem. And I left that night with like at least over 40, maybe 42, 43 different ideas to turn the business around. And I felt, I suppose, that the weight of the world wasn't on my shoulders anymore, that it was very much a shared weight. So so basically we left, and that's what I set off to do. I set off to diversify the business very much and get all the eggs out of the HSE basket, and to share that across a number of different centres, really, across our business. And really what we were trying to do here is to move away from so much of our business being in prescriptions, and to move it into retail and other things as well. So we started off with products and services that we felt that we could bring to Meaghers that nobody else had, and that led then to setting up a thank you service, really, to our customers, our loyal customers, which is M+, where we give them extra perks and I suppose reward them with loyalty and with gifts. And what that led to then was a way to communicate daily, really, if we wanted to, with our customers, to find out actually what was their needs and their wants. And we asked them over and over and over again, what other products and services would you like to see in Meaghers? What else would you like to see us deliver for you? What else? What are your challenges and how can we solve them? And that has led us on a whole path, I suppose, of setting up the online business, which we set up in 2014, really to drive improved convenience for our customers, to allow them initially to do click and collects because they were really busy, obviously, in professional areas, but actually then that has led us to enter new markets and now have a global strategy, really, when it comes to multi-channel retail. So it's led us on a path, I suppose, that really dark time led us on a path of, I suppose, new horizons is what I would say. And that night we did a lot of work as well. It was a very late night, but we did a lot of work on why people were actually working in Meaghers in the first place. What was it that made us different to anybody else in the marketplace? What was our purpose, really? And we have done lots of work on this over the years as we've gone through as well. And really, when it comes down to it, what we're trying to do is, it was really about improving the lives of our customers and actually of our team by educating them and empower them to make better healthcare decisions, really, and look after their health and well-being from their inside out. And we do, that whole community spirit is still very much alive and well within Meaghers. So we worked really hard together with other providers to really improve the quality of lives in our communities for a very positive and inclusive and sustainable future. So that's what gets people up in the morning and comes to Meaghers, and we always kind of refer back to that purpose, and that's the thing that kind of keeps us together, and it's really important to us actually in the business. we talked a lot, I suppose, then that has developed out into, okay, what is our vision for Mars? Where are we going? And I think as a leader, I think you need to know where it is that you're going, because this is the thing that keeps you in the right direction, and it keeps you on course, really. Because I have a habit, I suppose, as an entrepreneur, of going off course, and my team will always say to me, listen, you know, what is it we're doing? Where are we going? Are we still on track to achieve our vision? Is this in line with our vision? And it really, for us, it is to be Ireland's leading health-focused pharmacy and beauty group, I guess, and our customer health and well-being to be central to our success. And that's really important to us, because it's actually about us positioning ourselves as the pharmacy you come to in order to prevent you from getting sick in the first place, rather than the place where you come to just for a prescription. So we're trying to change the rhetoric from sickness into wellness. And that's why we do so much education around actually certain illnesses, certain conditions, and so on and so forth, because what we're trying to do is really educate our customers on how can they look after their health and well-being so they don't get sick in the first place. I think the next thing that we did then over the next coming years is really to have a serious look at our values. And these are our values in Mars. And that night, what I had asked them to do was come along with a picture of what Mars meant to them. And we kind of like did this whole thing up on the wall where we kind of stuck them all up kind of together. And those different themes actually turned into really our values. And this is really, really, really important to us in our business. And it's a thing that nearly is the foundations that we always go back towards to say, actually, are we behaving the way that we said that we would behave? And are we getting and going towards our vision by using these behaviors? Because that's what these are all about. It's about, you know, Mars is made up of these 6 key things, and this is what we look for in anyone who would come and join the business. Because what we've found is if the person who is coming to our business doesn't have these values, which is intrinsic in, I suppose, in everything we do, then they're never ever going to really fit properly. So we're always looking for people who will always put their customer first, who will have a very family ethos, as in they will support each other. We always are looking for people who really are passionate about delivering something really good for the community, who are absolutely passionate about learning in terms of improving their expertise at all times, finding solutions for problems and pushing boundaries, so really innovative and really always coming up with new, fresh ideas. And number 1, I suppose, in my list is always to have a positive attitude, really, because if you can embrace things, even, and particularly the last couple of months, this has really shone through when, you know, you're hit with adversity and you're hit with huge challenges, to not almost kind of go, oh no, well, like, you know, there's nothing we can do about this, or this is doom and gloom or whatever, but actually to turn it around and say, okay, what is the solution to this? What can we do about this? Is there any opportunities in this? And so the values in our business have been a real good guide, I suppose, to make sure that we continue to do the work that we're doing in the way that we always set out to do, I guess. So I guess from that dark night in the Sandy Bright Hotel, you know, we were able to diversify the business. We were able to change. We were able to grow when others were contracting and others were consolidating. And now we're up to 9 physical pharmacies and obviously the online store, which we set up in 2014. It took us a number of years to try and get that right, but now it's going really strong and is a huge part of our business. So now we would be seen as a multi-channel retailer, where we're encouraging people who might not necessarily be able to come into us, but actually can shop online at certain times, or some of our loyalist customers are actually from, you know, Donegal, from the length and breadth of Ireland. So, you know, it's allowed us to enter new markets that we don't need bricks and mortar pharmacies for as well. So if you were to ask me what my, I suppose, reflection on leadership was up to pre-COVID, this is what I would probably say, that, you know, the business for me is all about people and about building really strong relationships. And I think people do business with people that they like. So it's really important that we have the right people on our team. And and our team is a very diverse team, very diverse in terms of age, in terms of gender, in terms of nationality, because I think that diversity brings about diversity of thought. And that, again, is incredibly important. Whenever we have a very diverse customer base, we need to have a very diverse team to try and capture all of their needs and their wants. But with that diversity comes a common purpose, and everybody knows what it is that we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, and where we're going to try and go. And then what I would say as well is that we absolutely have made so many mistakes in terms of bringing people on who just didn't have the same values as what as a business has. And so what I would always say is to recruit really for attitude and train for the aptitude. And that has served us very well over the last number of years in terms of just getting the right people on our team. For me as a leader, I would say that one of my biggest skills, and the thing that I spend a lot of time doing, is listening rather than talking. Listening to our people in terms of what ideas that they have, listening, always just asking open-ended questions so that I can actually get what's really, a sense of what's really going on. And the same goes for our customers, you know, whether it be me going around the stores and having the chat to the customers on the floor, or whether it be chatting to customers through social media or whatever. It's getting those insights from our people and our customers and really joining the dots. And I think that is an incredibly important piece of leadership, really. And really, when you get those insights, then it is really about, okay, what am I going to do about this? You know, you've got all these valuable nuggets of information. It's about taking action then and actually doing something with that, because, you know, that's where you lose the opportunities if you actually don't. I would say that our team and my team, I'm really proud of them. I've built a really strong management team now, and we've some incredible people on our team. And for me, you know, years ago, I would have been a total micromanager, you know, always stuck in everything, always wanting to control everything. And I've learned, I suppose, as I've gone through and learned from my mistakes and that, and where that's got me, to really enable and empower our team. And my role, I think, as a leader is actually not to get stuck in the detail of it, but actually to support them and coach them through so that they can actually make the right decisions. Because I have people who work for me who are so much better than me, way, way better. And their skill set, my job is really pulling that skill set together and bringing them on the journey rather than having the skills that they have. They're so much more highly skilled than me. And once I can do that, I think what we've been able to manage, I suppose, in Meagher is to build an environment, a really high trust environment, is what I'd say, a really safe place where people know that their strengths and their weaknesses, but that they're allowed to make mistakes and they'll be supported through things. And I think that has built huge loyalty within our business, which I'm really, really, really proud of. And they know I've got their back, and I know that they've got my back. And that's a really it's a really special thing, actually. And that's, I think, the thing that has got us the Great Place to Work award last year. It was the first year that we engaged with that program, something we always had our eye on. I never felt that we were ready for it, and I always heard that, you know, once you apply, it'll take you 3 or 4 years to get even listed. We got listed in the very first year, and that is highly, highly unusual, we're told. And I think it absolutely boils down to that we have a huge amount of trust within our organisation, which I'm very proud of. I think probably another thing is this innovation that we have going on in Meagher. We always seem to be, you know, pushing the boundaries really and trying new things. And I think that is probably because we're quite agile. We have a very flat structure. So I hear about ideas quite quickly. They hear about ideas that we're thinking of quite quickly, the team on the ground. So we're quite agile and we can respond to things very, very fast. So, and I think that agility and that adaptability has really given us huge resilience to, you know, face so many challenges, even pre-COVID, that we've been able to overcome very, very quickly. But certainly in the last couple of months, it's certainly given us resilience as well. And even though that we are quite small, you know, in respect of, like, there's so many other larger groups out there in the marketplace, we really try and punch way above our weight. We're always involved and stuck in different organizations and networks to really continuously improve. So even though, despite our size, we try to behave, I suppose, like a multinational or behave like a much bigger organization and implement best practice all the time. So we're obviously involved in Retail Excellence Ireland. I was a former chair there, the Deloitte Best Managed Company, that network as well, because I think once you start networking with like-minded leaders, you can get lots of insights from them. It doesn't matter what sector that they're really in, to be honest, because my learning has been, it really, businesses have all the same challenges. It doesn't matter, what sector you're in. You can take learnings from any sector and apply it to your business as well. So listen, we love getting involved in lots of different networks, and it served us very well in terms of bringing back fresh ideas to our business as well. And then this is a new challenge. Every time I see this virus, I actually squirm. So obviously you would think, working in healthcare, we would have been well prepared for this and we would have known what was going to happen. But the reality is that we were not prepared for this. We knew it was on the radar. We knew it was coming. We discussed it, of course we did, but we were not ready for the impact of this, like anyone else, I think, probably in Ireland. And quite literally, it was like a steam dream coming at us. It was that bad, really. I know that, this virus has affected every sector in Ireland and continues to do so. But for us, working on the front line, it was traumatic, is what I would say. I think the only way I can describe it is pure panic, fear. I could actually see it on our people's faces every time I'd visit a store. Real huge stress, and I think that's, even from working with other healthcare professionals, and we're in the Meagher hospital, and when I visit the high dependency unit there and their intensive care, throughout this, that panic and that fear that's on those faces, that was the same panic and fear that were on our team's faces as well, because in an essential service like that, we just didn't know who was coming into the store that actually was COVID positive or COVID negative. We could see, obviously, people who were coming into the store who could have been displaying symptoms, and right next to them could have been another patient that, nobody knew other than us and that patient, that could be going through cancer treatment, or it was type 1 diabetic, or was chronic heart failure, or had COPD or whatever. And you had very vulnerable patients mixing with potential COVID carriers. And that was a very frightening place to be as a healthcare professional, and certainly it was for our team. And our team themselves, lots of them actually have underlying conditions, or were going home to people actually who had underlying conditions. So it was a very fearful, very scary time. And many of them stripped off in their porches, put their clothes into a black sack, ran up into the shower for fear of bringing the virus back into their own home. But at the same time, they turned up every single day, back to the purpose, really, and back to not letting down their team members, and back to our values. That's why they turned up every day. They turned up every day because they didn't want to let anyone else down, and they wanted to make sure that they were there to look after our customers and our communities as best that they could. So I suppose for us, as a management team and as a leader, our focus really turned away from really focusing on profits, like we would always do, obviously, in any business, but actually to really focus on people. And our primary concern, and is still our primary concern, is safety. And we set up the task force very early on to look after the safety of our people and to look after the safety of our customers. And that was all about protection. And listen, things were changing so fast. Every single day we were getting new notifications from the HSE or the PSI or the IPU or whatever. It was coming in fast and furious, and everything was evolving at huge space all of the time, saying, wear masks, don't wear masks, use this type of sanitizer, do this, do that, whatever. And it was just overwhelming, to be honest with you. But that task force played an absolute blinder in terms of sifting through all of that and deciding, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is the reason why. And it might be different tomorrow, but this is what we're doing today. And that came with, I suppose, a huge amount of work and endless hours, 24/7, non-stop meetings, on the hop all the time. It was carnage, really, to be honest. But our operations manager as well, he played an absolute blinder in terms of getting everybody out of the office and to enable them to really work from home as well. And that, just making sure everybody had the technology to do so and to be able to be connected into people. And able to still continue the business and to keep everything ticking on. And that, I suppose, as a leader, what that meant is we had to give people a lot of flexibility, because people had family members at home, they had children at home, they might have been sharing accommodation with other people, that they didn't have the space. They some people actually didn't even have anybody at home, and they were experiencing a whole different scenario where they were very lonely. And so we had a whole mix of, I suppose, of emotions and circumstances, and we needed to be able to give our people, I suppose, the flexibility to do as best they could do, really, in their given circumstances. And that really involved a huge amount of trust and allowing our team members to know that we actually had the trust in them just to do the right thing, right? To do the right thing. And we understood the scenarios that they were in, and whatever we could do to alleviate that, we were there to support them and to get them through it. And so all throughout that, I suppose, March, April into May, and still to this day, we're doing continuous engagement check-ins. It's something that our HR manager had set up whenever she joined our team, you know, over a year ago at this stage, but we use them all of the time now in terms of actually just checking in with people to say, are you okay? What's going well? What's not going so well? Is there anything else that you need to do your job? And is there anybody that we can thank on your behalf? We ask them all of that all of the time. And delighted whenever the Great Place to Work did a pulse survey, really to see how were our people actually doing, that the results of that was really, really strong, and people really, I suppose, welcomed the support that we were giving them. So listen, our team have played an absolute blinder. I couldn't be any prouder of them. They had so much courage, so much commitment, and back to that purpose. That's what they were telling us. That's why they showed up every day. They were showing up for their colleagues, they were showing up for our customers, they were showing up for our community. And, you know, I suppose every pharmacy in Ireland and beyond I think that we really stepped up to the plate, really, to be honest with you. There was no rule book, and there still is no real rule book in terms of doing this, but what we had to do was really make very decisive actions, and communication was absolutely critical, and still is very critical throughout this whole scenario. So I suppose if I was to look at what leadership skills or what changes I had to make, I suppose through COVID, I was very much leading from the front. And I know many of you had asked me about, you know, when you put yourself out there and you speak publicly about what you're going through, you know, you can take criticism and you can take all sorts of bashing, but like in healthcare, like, you know, we just have to do it. We have to lead from the front. We have to make our voices heard, because we need to have change as well. And we need to be a voice for our industry, and I feel very passionate about that, because we need, like, there needs to be a huge amount of transformation, I suppose, in healthcare. And despite, you know, what my team might think that I was quite calm and composed throughout all of this, it was anything but that, to be honest with you. You know, I mean, I've had the weight of all of this, I suppose, on my shoulders, as every other business leader has had. You know, you feel like, you know, you're worried about the business, you're worried about the people within the business, you're worried about, I don't know, everything to do with the business. But you, as a leader, I think you have to stay calm and composed, because I think your people really take, I suppose, their lead from you, and the last thing you want to be doing is in a complete state of panic around anyone. You know, it is really important to keep the head and stay cool. But I suppose I've had to dig very deep, and I think that and find that inner strength to get through this personally. And I think what I've come through in the financial crisis, I really lent back to a lot of that, to be honest with you, and to that experience, and just the lessons I learned through that, what not to do, and how not to get myself into that headspace again. And I use a business coach, obviously, and I am a business coach in the Going for Growth program as well. So I obviously was asking for a lot of help there as well, because you know, people think that I have all the answers. The reality is I don't have all the answers. I'm just doing the best I can as well. But it's important to make sure that you don't feel alone in that, I guess, and that's why I'd always encourage anybody to have a business coach. But the one thing I had to do, and certainly, was to make decisions on the hop every day, like almost impulsive decisions, really, because there was like so many problems coming at us left, right and centre. We had to make decisions as we went throughout the day. And the thing that I found really useful in all of this was actually always to sense check every decision against that purpose and against our values, to say, does that fit right? What would our customers think of this? What does our community think of this? You know, are we acting in the best interest of our people? Is it supportive to our people or whatever? And I think that has been a real good guide for me throughout all of this crisis. And back to empowerment and our team, like, I mean, I could not have done this on my own. I simply couldn't have. And the reality is that my senior management team have really stepped up and really taken a huge amount of autonomy and just gone and solved the problems for me. And they would nearly come back and tell me, we had this problem, this is what I did, it's all fine now. And that's an amazing thing to, you know, to be able to actually say. And it was the same actually even in our managers in the stores. They were facing all sorts of challenges throughout the day, but we work, and I suppose we have really encouraged them to have that autonomy, and we encourage that, and we have this culture of like no blame really. It's okay to make mistakes, we just learn from them. It's not that anybody's going to be pulled over any sort of coals. You just do the best you can do to try and solve the problems. And that's where we've got all these innovations coming out, and we have in this crisis had phenomenal ideas come to the fore, some fantastic ideas that we will continue post-COVID for sure. And you know, and it is because of that kind of culture, I think. But when I look at, I suppose, what kind of communication we've had to do within not only myself, but actually my senior management team, it has had to really be so much sharper, so much clearer, so much precise, very reliable, really trustworthy. And I have found myself saying, I don't know if we're doing the right thing here now or not. I don't know, tomorrow you could be told something completely different, but right here, right now, this is what we're doing, and here are the reasons why. Because we've just been trying to navigate putting out fires every single day. So I think it's really important as a leader to be honest and to explain, like, you're doing the best you can with the information that you have at the moment. And I think that goes back to, I suppose, trust really, and instilling that trust in our team. And I find that definitely through COVID, we've had to really dial up. We would probably be known as a very compassionate organisation anyway, but we've really had to really turn that up, because people are really struggling. People are coping very differently through this whole experience. Some people are really struggling with this. Other people are very much caught in the moment and are just getting through it. But you know, I'm very, very conscious that people are struggling in different levels. And so we've been really reaching out with people and just making sure that everybody is okay, and having a very sincere word, a caring word, and doing all we can to really get people through this crisis, because everybody has been dealing with it very, very differently, I guess. So I think we've gone from survival mode for March and probably April into, I suppose, this phase 2, where we've kind of been continuing the business. I'm very proud to say that we've been able to manage to keep all the stores open, keep the wheels on, get all the way through. We've managed to, you know, we didn't have any cases where we had to close down a store, because obviously if we would have had a positive case, we would have had to, you know, take all of the teams out that would have been in contact with that positive case for 2 weeks. We didn't get ourselves into that situation, because we had planned that COVID task force, planned it to a T, so that we were never going to get into that situation. I'm very proud to say that we've been able to continue the business throughout all of this. And we've now entered this new phase, I suppose, it's transformation phase, where we're kind of sitting back and saying, okay, well, you know, what has this all meant for our business, and where do we go really from here? And I just wanted to speak a little bit about that, because I think that this is going to be really important for leaders going forward. And, you know, I've been doing a lot of reflection on this myself. You know, I know that we've had this rhetoric where we're all in this together, and we've heard that over and over again throughout this whole period, from our Taoiseach and from, you know, our health minister and everything. But the reality is that everybody's experience has been very different throughout COVID. So many people have worked in essential services and retail, obviously in supermarkets and the likes, and ourselves in essential services. We have a very different experience to some other people who have been obviously maybe had been working from home, but have been very much at home. And the impact on different people has been very varied and very different. I think impact obviously on physical health, and anybody who became positive for COVID and ended up in hospital, and the worry and the fear and everything from their families on all of that. The emotional turmoil that this has actually caused in families as well has been second to none. The impact on finances with people has been very different, because some people obviously have even ended up losing their job. With nearly 300,000 people in Ireland who've lost their job. So the impact physically and psychologically has been very different. And I think we've gone through this to date pretty much in a state of shock. Everybody's been in a pretty much a state of shock, but now we're coming out as restrictions are lifting and people are starting to realise the impact of this, and that's when things can start getting us right.
What do you want, Ellie?
Sorry.
That's okay. So I think that yeah, priorities have shifted for everyone, including myself, I would say. I think we're very much more focused on our families now and our health and our well-being. And certainly for our team, we would be very focused on their well-being and our customers' well-being, and what's happening in our communities. So I think leaders now, including myself, it's like what can we learn from this absolutely horrific experience we've been through? What kind of world do we want to actually live in? What kind of community do we want to live in? What kind of positive choices can we actually make to actually learn something and continue that into the future? And I think there's big questions around social equality, around inclusion. We've seen the whole Black Lives Matter campaign around and just the impact of all of that in the midst of this. I think there's big questions around sustainability going into the future that leaders need to really look at. So I think there's a real momentum for change now, and I think the time is right for all of us to kind of reflect and make different choices in our business to actually reset and make our communities or our world a better place, really. So I think we're going into this transformation phase, and certainly we are in our business. And I think we've had this huge experiment, if you want to call it, of working from home, and that has actually shone a light on, actually, this can work, and this does give our people a lot more flexibility. I think technology has actually, here we are tonight on this old Zoom. It's become my best friend now. Zoom, it really has been a huge enabler for productivity, and now suddenly we don't have to get 10 people into a room in our higher management meetings anymore. We can do it actually on a whim, and people turn up generally on time on Zoom, and and it's over quicker, and it's much more productive, I think, meetings. So I think we need to continue that learning into post-COVID and just see, actually, can this flexibility, can it actually bring positive changes to our team as well, in terms of just their work-life balance and maybe working from home as well. And I think that, leaders need to look at, okay, that if you're going to do that and not bring people into a workplace, like, trust is the number one thing. And just making sure that, you do install this huge sense of trust, because my experience has been, if you give people choices and flexibility, they will make positive choices and they will get the work done. It might be at different times, because it might be working around children and so on and so forth, but they will give way more for that flexibility, way more. And I think that is really key, that extra discretionary bit, and it can work for both the organisation and for the employee. And so, that's something that we're really looking at going forward. And I think business owners and leaders need to look at this. So, and then when it comes to wellness, we throw around this word all of the time, and certainly in healthcare and the pharmacy world, we're really attuned to it. But we really need to take this seriously now, because we need to look after our people, we need to look after their families as well, and make sure that we're doing all that we can for their own, not only physical health, but actually for their mental and psychological health as well. So I think wellness is going to be a big topic that we need to have a big conversation about going forward. And that, you know, there's been so many positive things in terms of the community spirit and that social conscience that came out of COVID-19. There has to be a lot of real positive things that actually happen through this that we can actually embrace and continue forward as well. And that's something else that we're really looking at in Meaghers. And I think customers are much more attuned to, you know, really, are you a brand that really cares about me? Do you care about my safety? Do you care really about me? Or are you just trying to sell me something? Or are you trying to, you know, I think customers are much more attuned to that now. And I think that they will, you know, put their trust and give their business to people that really do care. And so I think that authenticity is going to be very important going forward. So I think the other big learning that I have got out of this is that, you know, us in Meaghers, we couldn't solve a lot of problems with our customers. And even when I look at what happened in the Meagher Hospital and the role we played in there, we couldn't have done all we did without collaboration and partnership with other people. So I think the business of working in silos in healthcare is over. It's very much working in collaboration with key strategic partners going forward, because I think that, you know, it's almost like, you know, the sum of the parts is much greater than the whole. And we have found that we've been able to do some magical things throughout COVID-19 in partnership with other people, and that's something certainly we will be continuing going forward. So I think it's a time now to harness all of these changes and reimagine, you know, what can the world look like, what can your business look like, and to really embrace this, I suppose, a transformational really mindset for leaders. And for us in pharmacy, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys in law and anybody else on the call, it's really accelerated innovation for us. You know, we obviously had a multi-channel business before, an online store, but that has actually now become a platform where we can actually you know, talk about medicines as well. So it's no longer just skincare and beauty products that we're using the online store for, but it's actually a platform to actually get medicines out as well. So we're really pivoting our business into virtual services. And I think that's going to be the future for healthcare, really a blend of physical and virtual services. We set up a helpline to help our customers initially, and that has got us great insights into you know, what our customers are really looking for. The Minister of Health changed the legislation to allow us to do digital prescriptions, and you know, that again in itself has put the patient at the core as opposed to this physical piece of paper that we used to always, you know, be chasing or whatever. So now we can accept digital prescriptions from healthcare providers, from GPs, and actually dispense those and actually get those delivered to our patients' doors, keeping them safe and healthy and well at home, and actually from a convenience point of view, stopping them to have to queue outside pharmacies. So we've been able to really fast track a lot of services that we've been working on in the past, but we couldn't do because we didn't have the legislation to do, whereas now this, I suppose, has fast tracked and accelerated all of this innovation. And we've just recently launched a virtual pharmacist service where we're not only delivering prescriptions to your door, but actually now what we're doing is actually delivering the service and the expertise by face-to-face communication with the pharmacist from the comfort of your own home. So, and it's allowed us really to offer this new service to many corporates that we work with, because obviously we're in corporate land in our locations, and actually customers all over Ireland, not just within the Dublin area, because now we very much are working and living within this virtual world. So really, I suppose it's allowed us to become the pharmacy to come to you, and I think that takes us to, I suppose, my last point really is to have that whole mindset change of, as leaders, really, you know, what is it that, you know, how can we make that what was impossible before COVID possible now, you know, and that what I always keep on, and I heard Maureen Gaffney talking about this, she's a clinical psychologist, I'm sure many of you will know, you know, that question on like, how can my business change now? And it's not changing just in spite of what has happened, but actually how can it change in a positive sense because of what has happened. What positive changes can we make? You know, what positive changes if I as a leader can I make to my team to make Mars a better place to work, whether that be flexibility and allowing people to work from home and us to be a better place to work, or, you know, for our customers, how can I make it that we're looking after them even the more vulnerable in a safer way, in a much more efficient way, by delivering prescriptions to their doors or keeping them safe at home. So I think that this whole thing has really made us relook at business, and I suppose it's really challenged me as a leader, but it's opened a whole Pandora box of ideas, I guess, and I think the key now thing for anybody in leadership roles is really, how do you embrace that change mindset? How do you embrace it? So to make it a better, I suppose, business, a better community, and ultimately, if we all make those positive changes, it'll be a better Ireland, it'll be a better world that we live in, really. So that is my thoughts really on leadership the last couple of months, really, or since I've started out, and happy to take any questions if anybody has any questions for me.
That's super. Thanks so much, Oonagh. That was really great. Some lovely comments in the chat there about, you know, your values and the values that you're keeping alive, and you know, you personally, you know, your inspirational journey. And I think the vulnerability, you know, I think, you know, leadership used to be about, you know, yes, staying calm and collected is always important, but not asking for help and not showing any vulnerability. So you've shown that you can be a leader, but also do those things. I don't know if anybody has any questions that they'd like to either ask in the chat, or if you can unmute yourself and ask. Don't know, Rosemary, if you wanted to.
Yeah, I've just unmuted myself, so I'm sure you got that at that stage. I don't know if you can see me. Hi, how's it going, Oonagh? Oonagh, really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed the kind of the growth mindset and the idea of the kind of hiring for attitude, because I think that's a really key thing that we're often, you know, we look too much towards the, you know, the skills on someone's CV rather than the idea of how they're going to work in the team. And, you know, and I really like the idea as well of the benefits you were showing there of the flexibility within the you know, the company, but also within your you know, kind of your input with your employees and how that came back to you. I'm thinking about how the different changes you made to bring a lot of your services online could actually be a great benefit in the kind of sole practitioner realm for solicitors, because, you know, in a lot of ways your kind of local pharmacy model is going to have the same sort of challenges as a sole practitioner in a small town, you know. So you've moved to now being able to provide services online. So if you were looking at kind of advising somebody in a small practice on, you know, how to scale up, what would be the first thing you'd kind of, you know, instruct them to do if they were trying to get their business kind of online and move from having just the people who are physically around them as their customers to being, you know, able to serve people who are more geographically diverse from them?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing I would do is, the key thing is to bring your expertise online. So to become a voice or an expert in your sector. And once you do that, from whatever kind of channels that you use, and like obviously we would use social media quite a bit. You know, and maybe for law, maybe it's more LinkedIn that you would be using, you know, that would, because you're B2B, aren't you, really? Yeah. Or, you know, so.
Well, it's sometimes both, actually. Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of colleagues that are would be on more LinkedIn than, we'll say, obviously Facebook, but that we do see some on Instagram, and obviously IWLA, we're across, you know, a number of channels, but I think we see colleagues across mainly LinkedIn, and for conversations, Twitter.
Okay.
And yeah, so that would be.
I think if you become an expert and you become a voice, and listen, and that can be difficult and challenging, and people struggle with that, and people of go, oh God, if I put myself out there, then I'm open to criticism and whatnot. But if you do become that voice, and there's not that many other people who are doing that, then you will stand out, and that will then attract you new business. That's my experience. That people were coming to us because we were that voice on social media, or whether we were that voice, you know, even on LinkedIn at times as well. So people were coming to us to get that advice because we were the only people who were really talking, really. And that gained us new customers and new business from other markets that we had no footprint in. And people will often say to me, oh, can I pick that up in your Galway store? Or can I pick that up in your Donegal store? Like, people think that we have physical pharmacies all across Ireland, but we don't. We're Dublin based. But that's a perception that we have.
I think that's really, really powerful, that the perception is there because you're out there and you're visible.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be visible. Like, if you want to get new business and you want to get it from new markets, then you have to be visible. And that is difficult because you've got to put yourself out there, you know, you have to. But as a business owner, I mean, that you have to be the face of the business, really, you know. And that's where you can win against the big guys. That's been my experience.
I like that. Yeah, we've got a lot of little guys, or little I won't say little, but you know, in our industry, there's a huge majority of solicitors still who are sole practitioners, and all barristers that would be sole practitioners. So, you know, being out there and being the face of your business is really an issue. Yeah. So really appreciate that. Thank you.
Probably have time for one more question if anybody else is anything that struck you. Again, like, lovely comments coming in the chat there. So I don't know if anyone has a comment, anything that struck them, or a question.
Hi, Oonagh. Thank you so much for that. I really, I took so much from it, and I found it really inspiring. I wonder if you ever find it difficult to find, or ever struggle to find the confidence to lead, and if you did, how you overcame that.
I find it difficult all the time to lead. Confidence is one of the things, like, you know, what you see is not what's the reality at all. Sometimes I have to really push myself to even do certain things. It's always a challenge, I think, whenever you put yourself out there at all. And sometimes I could walk up the stairs to our office feeling like I have no idea what's going to happen here today, or feeling really low. But when I open that door, I put a smile on my face, I put my shoulders back, and I walk in as if there's nothing going on, or there's nothing, you know, because, like, I'm a mum, I have 2 young children as well, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I have all the same challenges everybody else is going on, but I also have this other family, I suppose, of every other employee in Meaghers, and that what they don't want to get from me is any sort of that there's anything wrong, or that there's panic, or that there's fear or anything, because they will take that energy from me. So it's my role, I suppose, as a leader, to put that aside, park that at the door, and as my mum always says to me, pull up your knickers, you know, pull up your granny knickers and get on with the job here, and you know, because that's what leaders do. And you might not feel it, and sometimes I feel like an imposter, you know, there's many a day I feel like that. But I can't show that. I've got to go, and there's a place for that. There's a place for having those conversations of how I'm really feeling, and, you know, discussing that with maybe a business coach, or, you know, somewhere where I can let down my you know, let people in and let people know what's really going on. And I have a very close network of other business owners that we use the same business coach, and we meet up once a month, and that's where we kind of share, like, what's really going on in this mad head, you know. And that's where I get that support, you know. But and I also talk to my team, my closest team members, my senior management team, if I have serious worries as well, and they would give me a lot of support too, you know. So it's just picking the right appropriate people, really, you know, to get that confidence. And I think once you try things, and once you push yourself out there, and, like, even after tonight, I'll be glad that I did this, and I'll be able to say, oh yeah, you did that, you must know something that you're talking about, or whatever. And that gives you more confidence. I suppose it grows over time as well, you know. So, but it's not easy. I don't think it's easy for anyone, really.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
At all.
Unfortunately, no magic wand. It's just, get out and do it, and
Woman up.
Woman up. Woman up. Exactly.
Okay, well, thanks so much for your time. I don't know if people saw the response of the poll there, but, you know, we're about 50% lawyers, which makes sense, but then also business people and pharmacists and others and everyone in between. So it's great. And I think you had something to say to all of us, you know, just those leadership tips you could apply anywhere. So thank you so much. Really gained a lot from that. And as was said in the chat, you know, inspiring journey that you've been on and are continuing on. So best of luck with that, and we'll follow with interest. Maybe you will have physical stores all over the country, or maybe you won't need to. But yeah, every success, and thank you so much again.
Thank you. Not at all. Not at all. And thanks a million for everybody for tuning in.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Bye.